Hi, I'm Hal Ruth with Equalizer 9, and I'm going to talk to you today about the client experience. And let me first of all tell you how I got interested in this subject called the client experience. Just a real quick story. So several years ago, I was working for a large regional construction company, and we had a project at a local university, and it was about $50 million in value. And I went out to meet with the head of the facilities team and his project manager and some other staffers. And I asked them, so, hey, we finished this project, how did we do? Love to hear your opinion on how we did. And here was his answer. He said, well, one of the criteria that we were evaluating success on was schedule. You had to finish by this date because the kids were coming to the college and we needed it finished. And you made the date, it was no problems. When it was time to move in, everybody moved in. It was pretty smooth. So on the schedule thing, went great. And then he said, he wanted to talk about quality. And he said, from a quality standpoint, it was absolutely the best quality we've ever had. When we walked in, everything functioned as it was supposed to function. Everything looked fantastic. So from a quality standpoint, it was the best quality we've ever experienced at this university on any projects. And then he said the other third criteria was being able to hold the budget or control the cost. And he said there were no major change orders. Cost, there was no uptick in cost. You held the number, so that went really, really well. And he said, so those three things went fantastic, and those were the main criteria that we said from the beginning that would mark success of this project. And by the way, we never ever want to work with your team again. And so I was stunned and I asked, I don't understand. I thought you said the three primary criteria, everything went according to plan. It was how you measure success. And the answer came back, yes, you met all those criteria that when we first set out and said, hey, what would success look like? You met those. But working with your team was painful, and it was a horrible experience. And when we would try to get involved to understand what the progress was, because we needed some comfort in knowing that we were going to hit that schedule, you guys would just tell us, your team would just tell us, hey, leave us alone. We know what we're doing. You don't. Get out of our way. We got this. And that was sort of kind of the way they made the client, you guys made us feel. And then they cited some other examples about how we were just difficult to work with, and they never wanted to work with us again. And that got me thinking a lot, because I've actually experienced the opposite, where I've seen projects managed by, in particular, I always remember this one project manager, and I'm going to call him Clyde. That's not his name, but Clyde, anytime he would manage a client's project, even if there were challenges along the way, even if maybe we were a little late, maybe even if there were some cost overruns, or there were other challenges that popped up, it seemed like every time the project ended, the owner team would go, we just love Clyde, and it was a great experience, and we want to work with you guys again and again, and if we can have Clyde, we want to work with you again. And so this is strange to me. So we have on one side, all the success criteria are met, and they don't ever want to work with us again. And on the other side, there were some, challenges, things that didn't go exactly right, and yet they wanted to work with us again and again and again. And so what it made me start thinking is there's something about the way we make people feel and how we manage the client experience. And so I set out to start studying this world. And so several years passed, now I own my own consulting firm, and I really dug into this to think, how can we make a difference in the client experience? Because here's what I believe. I believe that the client experience is the last frontier of differentiation. And here's what I mean by that. There's this term called strategic convergence. And here's what strategic convergence means. It means, and I'm going to give it in the example of my industry, construction. So If you remember back around 1999, 2000, in that time frame, some of the big national and international construction firms got into this world of BIM coordination, building information modeling. And so there were only, in the beginning, 2 or 3 of those firms who were doing it, maybe 4 or 5. And so they were able to differentiate themselves from everybody else. They said, we do this, clients will save you time and money. And there was a little bit of eye candy about it as well. And so clients gravitated toward it. They differentiated on it. Well, what happened? Well, they rode that differentiation curve up. In other words, they innovated and implemented, and they differentiated. And then what happened? Everyone copied it. And so then no one differentiated on it. I mean, let's face it, today, everyone does BIM coordination. Even small firms do BIM coordination and do it just as well as some of the big firms. So we're at the bottom of that curve again. Then what happened? If you remember about 2005, 6, the new trend is that the big boys, they started pushing sustainability in. Everyone must be LEED certified or LEED AP certified. You remember those days? And then what happened? They're writing that up there, they're differentiating, and then everyone copies it and no one differentiates. And so there's this constant up and down, and it's called strategic convergence. Basically, we all just mimic and copy best practices. If you think about it, I'll ask you this question. Do you really do pre-construction services any different than anyone else? Probably not. Do you do scheduling really different than anyone else? No, you probably even use the same software. Like, do you do your accounting any different? If you think about it, you just go through it. Do you do how you manage the field? Do you do that any differently? I mean, heck, all of us even use Procore now. I mean, actually 95% of you use Procore. We do the same thing, strategic convergence. And so what I believe is this client experience thing, that how you make clients feel, and I know this is touchy-feely stuff, and some of you are already going, oh boy, stop. But I'm telling you, these behaviors are the last frontier in how we can differentiate ourselves. And I believe that it's also, if you can become really, really good at it, it's hard to emulate. And that's why I think it's going to be hard for others to emulate and ride back down. I think you can stay up here and differentiate for a long, long time. So with that, I started experimenting, thinking, how can we capture this value in this client experience thing? And so what I did is I've created this thing called the Above and Beyond Game Plan.